You know, I was going to try to do like that one video when I did with the New Jedi Order Star Wars where I held them all, like all 17 books like that. I was going to try to do that with this, but they're just too big of boys. Hey, what's up, bookworms? We're back today to talk a little good and the bad. And today we're going to be dipping into the world of the Realm of the Elderlings by Miss Robin Hobb. Now, yes, I do have all of these books, but since I have these nice, beautiful hardcovers of the Farseer trilogy, I'm going to talk about them first because they're just stunning, you know, and I wish that they'd make the whole series in these, and I think that these were just because they were like the 20th or 25th anniversary or something like that, and that's why we didn't really get to see the rest of it. But now that I bought them all in paperback, I'm sure they'll probably, you know, do that. But yeah, I'm probably going to get them all down here to show you guys because it is a very long series written between 1995 and 2017. I read this whole thing between 2021 and towards the end of 2023. I did wrap it up here. So it currently consists of 5 sub-series. That's 16 novels, 1 novella, and a handful of short stories. Has sold over 5 million copies around the world. And when you got 16, 17 books, yeah, that's going to add up to quite a bit. So a series that I feel like plenty ask me a lot. You know, Mike, do you think that that's a series that I would enjoy? And I thought, you know, do I want to make a why you should read for this? No, hat tip to my amigo Loco on the Discord server. He kind of pointed it out to me. Would you consider doing a good and the bad of Realm of the Elderlings? I said, you know, I think that that's much more fitting for this because I don't think it's a series that's going to work for everyone. And we're going to talk about today why that is. So if you find yourself leaning into the good that I'm talking about here, well, then, you know, hey, maybe go ahead and pick it up. You find yourself agreeing with the bad a little bit, then I say, hey, maybe skip it. There are some other things out there that might be a little bit more of what you are looking for. But let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Let's begin with the good, and that is that Robin Hobb is an absolute master of character work. I mean, she's up there with some of the all-time greats. I'm putting her up there with Stephen King as just like an incredible character writer in that she writes a character that feels so real. You feel like you know them. But it isn't just the characters, it's the character relationships, how they interact with each other, how they grow closer, how they grow further apart, how people change as they get older. And I think she does a really great job of family relationships and found family relationships, because I just learned recently that found family apparently is considered a subgenre. I mean, I've read that in my fiction before, but I never knew it was considered a subgenre. But speaking of genres, this has all kinds of genres here. We got coming of age, we've got found family, we've got epic fantasy, we've got nautical fantasy, we've even have some YA fantasy in there, as well as obviously adult fantasy. So it's all going to be fantasy, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like there are several things here that I think that you would be a little bit of something for everyone here. But the growth of her characters over the course of the series is just amazing. I mean, you think about, you start with Fitz when he's, you know, just this tiny little kid, you know, and then you see him grow all the way through being an old man, you know, with a it's just amazing. It really is just amazing how far you go with this. And with me, I love watching a character run through the years of their lives. That's something that Stephen King's always been really good at. And Miss Hobb is really great at here. And she does it over the course of 9 books with Fitz, you know. And so I think that's just an amazing journey to follow this character through their whole life. You know, it's interesting to watch how these characters change over the course of time and watch how the stories grow with their characters. Because obviously, you know, Farseer, you're dealing with coming of age, you know, and he hasn't done shit yet. You know, at that age, no one can tell you that you're wrong about anything, you know. And then Tawny Man, you know, where you're dealing with, you know, them late 20s, early 30s, what life is like there. And then, of course, in Fitz and the Fool, you're dealing with, you know, much older. Let's just put it that way. I don't give you too many spoilers there. But you just see different versions of life with this character. And I think that's what just makes the character relationships amazing, as well as animal companions. Guys, you know, I do love me some animal companions. I've made a whole video about animal companions. Night Eyes is obviously the one. I think that you talk to anyone who's read Robin Hobb, they're just going to gush about Night Eyes, and that's deserved. Night Eyes is an amazing character, but it isn't just Night Eyes. You know, this whole magic system of this book, the wit is basically like bonding or mind melding, if we want to get kind of Star Trek-y with it, with animals. You know, that's kind of how the magic system really works here. Now, there's other parts of the magic system, but that's the big one. You know, is these people that can bond with animals and kind of share a link with them, and that's just, I mean, I think that's kind of a cheat code for Night Eyes, because unlike a lot of other wolf animal companions that I do like in fiction, you can hear this one talk because of this mental connection. So I think that gives a nice layer of adding another character into the story that you wouldn't get in any other fantasy series out there. So that's a really great one. But like I said, I think that this series, having so many different forms of fantasy as well as being divided into 5 sub-series, that's something that's really great. So you got Farseer, you've got Life Ship Traders, you got Tawny Man, you got the Rainbow Chronicles, and then you got the Fitz and the Full Trilogy. So 4 trilogies and one set of 4 books that is... Well, let's just say it's much maligned. Let's just put it that way. We'll get into that in a minute. But I think that makes it very easy to take breaks with this series. And I think that when you're dealing with a series that is 16 books long, a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, I don't want to get into a long series right now. Well, what makes this so great is you can do trilogy, take a break and read other things, come back 6 months later, read another trilogy. I think that's awesome. That's what I'm really liking about doing Drizzt. That's why I wasn't scared to start Drizzt by R.A. Salvatore, because first you look at it like, I don't know, man, it's like 40-something books. But yeah, it's trilogy. You can take breaks between it. And that's what's great about it. So I think being able to break this up over the course of time is great. And also, you can do it the way that you want. You know, a lot of people have been like, hey, do I have to read the non-Fitz books? No, you don't have to. I prefer that you do, because I think Live Ship Traders is amazing. But with me, it's like you can read just the Fitz books. Sure, you're going to have some things where like people, you aren't getting like a reference, but the story isn't going to not make sense to you or something if you read just the Fitz books. If you want to read just Live Ship Traders, you can do that and be fine. I think that's what's great about this series. You can kind of do it your way. And I think it's going to have a different kind of experience for everybody. Obviously, I'm a completionist when it does something like this, so I was going to read everything. But, you know, a lot of people ask me, hey, can I skip the Rainbow Chronicles? Probably. You probably can. I mean, it's one of those things where like, I don't recommend it, but you probably can if you really want to. I don't feel like it's going to break the story for you, but I think you should read the Fitz books, you know, if you want to get the whole storyline here. But I do feel like her prose is just amazing. I mean, she's just a wordsmith, very much like a Bradbury kind of way. And that's the highest compliment I can get, because I think Ray Bradbury is one of the greatest writers of all time. But her writing style is just beautiful. There's so many times where I would just read a string of words and be like, wow, that is beautiful, and just read it again. And the thing is, like, I'm not the big prose snob guy. I don't care. That's a bonus for me. It's not anything that I'm like, you've got to be just a top-notch writer for me to read your stuff. So if I'm noticing it, I feel like it's something truly special. And her pen is just magical. And that's why that, combined with her character work, is why she cracked my top 10 authors of all time list that I just made recently. And what that was like, I like to say I like to read more than one series by an author, but when I've read 16 books and a novella by one author, I feel like that, you know, like that can be up for contention when it comes to something like my favorite authors of all time. But yeah, her character reason is the reason why I put her there. So her character work is highly advertised. Anybody asks you, you know, somebody asks you, hey, why do you read Robin Hobb? The answer you're always going to get is always going to be, well, her character work. And it is. Her characters are so real, and you will get very attached, and you will get very emotional over them. And if you know, you know. That brings me to, well, I always say the bad. I mean, that's in the title of the episode here. But I always say maybe there's some things that might not work for you. I think there's some things that you should know. And if you think that these are things that you don't like in your fantasy, you know, it might not be the series for you. The first one, these books have very little action. And I mean very little action. Look, there are memorable moments. There are big epic scenes. There are huge payoffs. Sometimes it can be 100, 200, up to 1,000 pages between those big events. So they matter when they happen. But this is not the series for you if you're just looking for something to go every 20 pages. It's not that. This is not what. It's not Red Rising, guys. This isn't nonstop action. This is the very definition of slow burn fantasy. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing, but these are very much a character study book. It is about the journey, not the destination for sure. You are just getting inside these characters' heads, seeing what makes them tick, and seeing how the relationships develop over the backdrop of this crazy epic world. So it's one of those things where if you are wanting something a little more fast-paced, it might not be for you, because I get a lot of people will be like 3 or 4 books in the series and like, this is pretty slow, Mike. Does it ever pick up? That's just kind of her style, man. So if you aren't really feeling it, you're going to probably know right away. Now, I tell people, at least get into Live Ship and see. You know, don't just read Assassin's Apprentice and decide if you're going to read the book or not, either the series or not, because I don't think maybe that's a good representation of the series as a whole. But I still think her writing style is pretty much on display from the beginning, that you have to really like, that you're just spending a lot of time with these characters. You're doing slice of life. You're just enjoying their daily life of what things are like in the world, as opposed to just, again, just nonstop, just beat after beat, plot point, plot point, plot point. Here's a big twist. Here's something crazy epic happening. Here's an explosion. Look, it's the series. It's got dragons in it and stuff. So those things are there. They're just very few and far between. So you ever hear people say like, I just read like 400 pages and nothing really happened. If that's one of those kind of things that bothers you, then yeah, this might be a pass for you. You might want to check out some other series. I have tons of recommendations for you. So with this, it's very much going to be kind of slow. But I will say that this does kind of suffer in the same regard as Wheel of Time. Something about Wheel of Time you'll always hear about when you start reading that, as people talk about the slog. The slog is books 7 through 10 of Wheel of Time, where the story really slows down to a glacial pace, and you'll read a whole book and be like, yeah, I could have probably read a Wikipedia page and gotten everything that I needed to get out of that book. You will have that here as well. The ℓ𝕬𝕣𝕟 Chronicles is very, very much slandered upon even the biggest of Hobb fans will really say some bad things about that series. And again, like I said, people ask me all the time, should I skip it? Like, it's one of those things like, would you be better for it? Maybe, but if you want to get, there is stuff that is important in that book, in that series. It's just, it takes a lot longer to get there than even usual. Because, even some stuff in Tawny Man, when I was like, oh my God, Miss Hobb, can we get on with it? Yeah, ℓ𝕬𝕣𝕟, it'll test your patience. And I feel like that is a series that kind of burns people out from ever finishing the series. So, your mileage is going to vary there, I think. But, if these are things that I criticize Wheel of Time about, why would I not criticize Realm of the Elderlings about? I feel like this is something that probably could have been fixed with, an editor that was a little more vicious, because not every one of these books don't need to be 800-900 pages long. I will say that for sure. In the other characters, I talk about how great the character work is, and she's really awesome at it. But they're not all home runs. I'll be honest. There's characters you love to hate. There's characters you hate to love. And then there's the characters with what I call go away heat. And actually, I don't call it. That's a wrestling term in case you don't know. What I say with this is a wrestler is when you're booking a promotion here, you want the audience to love a wrestler or hate a wrestler. You don't want them to not care about a wrestler. And you don't want to uninterested that it's just what I call go away heat. That's where it's like, no, you don't want that. And there are characters in ℓ𝕬𝕣𝕟 Chronicles that are like, yeah, this is just like, I don't care. I don't care at all. So they're not all hits. And again, I think that that's just going to be one of the things that depends on you, as does if the series might go on a little long. Now, this is a point of contention amongst many, many fans who have read this series. Personally, I think that the Fitz series went one trilogy too long. I think the Fitz and the Fool had a lot of things that I really did like, but what I didn't like was at the end of Tawny Man, I felt like our characters got about as happy of an ending as they could possibly get in this world, because Miss Hobb does like to put her characters through the ringer. Don't get me wrong here, but the kind of way that I put it was, imagine if one day J.R.R. Tolkien woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to take Samwise Gamgee out of his happy ending he had at Return of the King. I'm going to put him back out there in the field and let him do some work years later. That's kind of how I feel about what she does with Fitzness, and that's why I will say, while I think that trilogy had a lot of redeeming qualities about it, I didn't like it. I didn't like that you took these characters away from the ending that was just perfect. Basically, it was Toy Story 4, guys. It was Toy Story 4, where Toy Story 3 had the perfect ending, and it was like 4, it was like, look, I understand you guys, these make a lot of money. I understand why you're doing it, but why? You're not going to get a better ending than that. That's kind of how I feel about it. But again, that's going to depend on you. There are plenty who say the Fitz and the Fool trilogy is their favorite trilogy in the whole series here. So again, that's just going to kind of depend on you. But yeah, I felt like 9 was the ending that we deserved. My final thoughts here, guys. I gotta say, if you like spending times with characters, you like characters you're going to fall in love with, and you just want to hang out with them, then this is going to be a series for you. You want to get inside their head. You want to see how these relationships grow over decades and decades of time. I think that this will be a series for you. If you like the writings of Tad Williams, like Memory, Star and Thorn, if you like Name of the Wind, Patrick Rothfuss, I think that that's the type of author that you like those authors, you're going to really get into Robin Hobb, because you have your slow pacing, you have your beautiful prose, and you have your story and your world that just kind of grow over time. But it's about the character relationships with one another that really just kind of supersede everything else in the story. I feel like the fans of those authors will probably like this quite a bit. Look, for me, Life Ship Traders by itself is enough to make this series a top 10 series all time for me, because Life Ship Traders is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It has one of the most layered and incredible villains that I've ever read in Captain Kenneth, and that's a character that will always stay right here. I will never ever forget about this character. I compared him to Sandan Glokta from First Law, who I love. It's one of those, like a Glokta, where you're like, you're really not a good person, but I find myself in your corner. It's just really, really weird, because the way she does is like in the Fitz books, you're just in Fitz's head, but in the other books, you get multi-POV, and I think that just helps the world feel bigger, and she actually puts you in the villain's head, and you can see from that character's point of view they don't consider themselves a bad guy. And after a while, you start being like, yeah, he's not the bad. Wait, he's the bad guy, right? And it's almost like a double move. Again, I double turn. I keep going to wrestling terms for some reason. A double turn, where the good guy turns bad and the bad guy turns good at the same time. It's one of those kind of things where, like, I find myself rooting for the bad guys and cheering against the good guys because she's just that good of a character writer, And I think what she does with Life Ship Trader is just remarkable. But much like Wheel of Time, guys, like I said, I feel like this series could have had a more vicious editor. And someone could have helped her with her pacing a little bit, because I will say about the 3 Fitz trilogies, my biggest complaint about it, each of those books didn't need to be 900 pages long, and yet still feel like the ending got rushed on all 3 of them. The third book in each one of those trilogies, I felt like the last book was the ending, the third act. Amazing, but they should have been longer. It's like, I don't ever feel like I should read a 900-page book and feel like anything was rushed, anything at all. So that's just, again, that's going to kind of depend on you. That's where I kind of fell on it. But yeah, like I said, if I'm going to criticize Wheel of Time for these things, basically some Wheel of Time books where I'd be like, nothing was good except the final act, Like people still say, oh, Winter's Heart doesn't count as part of the slog because it's got a great ending. Yeah, what about the 700 pages that came before that, So I feel like those things do apply here. But warts and all, guys, this is a fabulous series that I think just about anyone's going to love. If they go into it with these expectations, if you're there for the characters, you're there to see how these relationships grow, how people come closer, how they grow further apart, how they change over the course of decades, If you prefer that over needing fireballs and explosions every 20 seconds, I think that you will probably find a new favorite series, because this is a series that people either seem to love or hate. I really, 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 really like it. The only thing that really kind of hold it back for me is the second half of the series. I just told you what I didn't like about pulling Fitz out of his happy ending, and Rainwild Chronicles was kind of a miss for me, big time. But I mean, that seems to be the consensus, really. So, but again, even with that, guys, this is definitely a top 10 fantasy series for me. But make sure that you are checking out what I'm saying here. If you find yourself really nodding, I really like that, what I'm saying about the good stuff, hey, pick it up, check it out. Check out Farseer, get into Life Ship Traders, then make a decision. If all the stuff I said in the bad column really had you being like, oh no, there's some red flags, I say maybe pick something else. Again, like I said, I can give you lots of recommendations. Just let me know what you're looking for down in the comments, guys. I'd love to know what you think about Realm of the Elderlings. Have you read it? Are you interested in reading it? Did I sell you one way or the other on this? That is the point of the good and the bad, is to let you guys know if this is a series, if you're kind of on the knife's edge, which way do I think that you should fall. So drop in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think about Realm of the Elderlings, and I will talk to you there.